Fans, welcome back to the Food for ThoughtCast with me, your host, Melissa Reagan, and my co-host with the most, Chef Steven Gonzalez. What's up, Steve?
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Good. Long day at work, but here we are, having fun.
Same. Joining us for his triumphant return to the Food for ThoughtCast is David Page. Hi, David.
Hi, and I'm glad to be triumphant. I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I'll take the appellation.
Yeah. Well, it was great the first time, and it's going to be great this time too.
Oh yeah,
I had fun. That's why I'm glad to be back.
Oh, well, I love it. Well, those of you that have been listening for a long time, you'll remember that David was a guest on episode 12 of the podcast when she was just starting out, the little podcast that could. We discussed Food Americana last time, the great book, this amazing book right here. Ooh. And of course, we talked plenty of diners, drive-ins, dives, but David's working on some new stuff that we'll get into in just a little bit. But I always start every episode asking what was the most amazing thing you ate? And since you're our guest, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. I made a beef tenderloin the other day that was just extraordinary.
Oh, man.
And not being a pro, my problem is when I get something right, I can't repeat it. But clearly, I got the salt, pepper, cumin, garlic mix just right. And I'm cooking not just for my wife, but also her 106-year-old mother is with us for a couple of weeks. So
wow.
Who can eat anything and has been chowing down on pretty much everything. But there is a texture issue. So rather than a steak, I decided to go for it. And I don't know what you guys as professionals would do with it, but I'll let you know. I mean, I do it so simply, it's insane. I sear it, then I put it in the oven at 500, which many people would tell me not to. And it's in there about 20 minutes and it comes out beautiful. So that's the best thing. And the number 2 best thing I ate this week was local scallops. I live on the coast in South Jersey where the fishing boats go out every morning and our scallops are the best. So
I can imagine.
Whipped up a bunch of those as well. So it's been a good food week.
Well, David, I have to know, did you clean the tenderloin?
No. I know my limitations. You say silver skin and hey, get me a butcher. I have a great butcher and that's what I do.
I respect that. I mean, the fact that you know what the silver skin is, right?
Well, I don't know that after blah years doing food journalism.
Sure. What did you serve with it? I
served mashed potatoes because that's what you serve. I mean, that's
steak, potatoes, red meat, potatoes. Yeah, you got it.
Absolutely.
It's such a great combination. It really is. There's just, and the weird thing is I'm serving this in the summer. You know, this is such a winter dish, but not as winter as my short ribs, which I'm also quite proud of.
Nice.
It's nothing for the winter quite like a braise.
Oh, well, but you know, it's fascinating. I've been talking to so many people about cooking technique lately. And I'll explain why in a bit, but it's really, really focused me on cheap meat. The kind of cooking, you know, so much of what's great on the table is the food of poverty. It's the food that if you couldn't afford the good stuff, you had to figure out what to do with the stuff that wasn't so good, which is where you get everything from haggis to short ribs to any creative use of what is not considered A1 material. And what cultures have done with the braise to make tough meat not just edible, but more than flavorful is extraordinary. I love working with those guys.
Well, and to make it fashionable.
Yes. Well, but the problem with making it fashionable is short ribs used to be cheap. You know,
I think Stephen probably has one of the best examples. Lingua.
Yep. Beef tongue. Yeah.
Lingua.
I can remember being in San Antonio back in 2005, 2006, and you can get one for like maybe $10 if that, and now they're like $20-$30, you know. So
yeah, well, it's funny too, because tongue is one of those disposable parts that every culture but ours tends to eat. I mean, I'm by definition a New York Jew, and of course, when you did the buffet from the deli, of course you had tongue, which we would jokingly refer to as the only dish that when you taste it, it tastes back.
Steven, what did you eat?
The most amazing thing I've had this week, let's see. I remember after talking to you, we were discussing pineapple and whether or not it goes on pizza. So I went to one of my local pizza spots.
Don't. Oh, no.
Well,
I'm in New Jersey. Don't do what you're about to do.
No, actually, so I went to a buddy's. He's got like a little pizza truck. And, you know, I always like to support local businesses. Pizza is always a good way to go. And although it was on the menu, I didn't order it. But we got like, I think he calls it his West Texas pie or some of that. Basically, it's like pepperoni and a ton of jalapenos. And yeah, the way that he makes his crust, really good, very light. And of course, you know, wood fired, all that stuff. But the thought of getting pineapple and ham did cross my mind. I'm not going to lie.
No, pineapple is a fabulous ingredient. The al pastor in Mexican cooking.
Yeah.
That's wonderful use of pineapple. Putting a pineapple on a pizza is a crime.
You might not like what I had last weekend.
Then lock us up, David, because we're guilty.
Now, you can do a lot with pineapple people don't realize. I mean, pineapple should be cooked in 8 million different ways, just not on a pizza.
Well, tell him, Steve. Tell him about the pizza you had the other day.
Well, speaking of al pastor, for another pizza spot here in West Texas, they were doing an al pastor pizza. So, of course, it was homemade. It was homemade sausage. My friend makes some killer sausage. He does charcuterie, all that stuff, all in his own little kitchen. And they did add a little bit of pineapple, cilantro, you know, the red onion, all that stuff. I'm not going to lie. I was skeptical as can be. And when I took that first bite, it was on point. It was spot on. It was delicious. Yeah, it was good.
See, but the point is, and here I'm talking to professional chefs like I know what I'm talking about, but as a consumer of food, it's the melding of flavors, the way flavors go together that is the killer app, which is why pineapple on pork, al pastor, perfect. Works perfectly well. The flavors balance each other. Pineapple on pizza? I'm sorry. I'm a creative guy. And by the way, if you like it, then it's a great dish.
That's right.
It's not on my cup.
Then it's no longer a crime, sort of.
You may get out on probation, but I still might convict you.
You'll find that Melissa and I are very lax on a lot of things that might be considered taboo or just gross.
Or culinary faux pas.
If they work, they work. But here's a perfect example. Lobster rolls have kind of taken over America. And now, because we are the country of more, everyone brags about how much lobster meat is in the lobster roll. It's become like a Katz's Deli sandwich, or worse, a Harold's of Edison sandwich, where there's all this meat and 2 thin pieces of bread. The lobster roll done right requires just the right amount of lobster to play off the opposing flavors of the bun and the butter. When you start just piling lobster on, it destroys the balance. And I'm glad to have all that lobster. I'll put it on the side. I'll eat it by itself. But a good lobster roll is not overstuffed. It's properly stuffed.
And I also prefer, like, I'm in the cold lobster roll camp.
So am I.
Like the celery mayo, right? Like, and if you put too much in there, it's kind of like you lost the plot. Like, it doesn't.
I can see that.
The mouthfeel is just like, oh, great.
Well, there should be almost no mayo. It's like the joke about making the perfect martini. Take the 2 bottles, clink them. Now pour the vodka in your glass. Pour the vermouth in the garbage, and go from there.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
A And what's interesting, people don't realize this, the original lobster roll was not the mayo one. It was down in Connecticut. They invented the one with butter.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually,
the warm one.
Yeah, I know the guy's name, but it's escaped me now because I'm getting old and my memory's gone. But the right kind of cold lobster roll. And when we first started diners, this may have been in the pilot. We did a lobster roll at a diner in the Boston area where he would do them when his fish guy had culls, lobsters with only one claw, and thus they could not be sold for a lobster dinner. And it's his, quote, recipe, like anyone, no one's using a tablespoon measure, but it's his recipe, which is basically the least amount of mayo you can get away with. And if you want celery, a tiny little bit, but it's about the lobster.
It's really just enough to where you won't choke on it.
Right.
Makes it like palatable.
It's pre-Heimlich. That's
it.
Well, Melissa, what was the most amazing thing you had to eat?
So yesterday for lunch, I made a dish that I wasn't familiar with, but I had started following a lot of more kind of Cajun and Creole, I guess, influencers on TikTok. And so it's sticky chicken, where you take like thighs and you season them with Creole or Cajun seasoning, like kind of to your liking. Skin side down, brown them really hard, like in a like a Le Creuset. Onion, celery, carrot, or the Trinity, and then Worcestershire sauce and brown sugar, but I use like a sugar-free sweetener. And it gets really sticky and concentrated. And I put baby carrots and cabbage in mine and kind of let the whole thing go. It was really, really good.
What was the sweetener that you ended up using?
Brown sugar swerve.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's kind of like stevia, but it doesn't. Sometimes when you cook with stevia, it gets like a weird texture, or it can kind of have like a minty aftertaste.
Yeah.
But swerve is really good, and it has kind of that molasses component that you're looking for. So it was fantastic.
You know what's interesting, and we chat a little off the air. I had a diabetes scare and had to modify my eating and cooking, but unless it's a tremendous amount, I'd rather take the hit from real stuff.
Most
sugar's 15 calories a teaspoon. So
I just didn't have any real on hand. I would always also prefer real, except for like in a soda. I'm not going to drink my calories like that.
Can you believe that Dr. Brown's discontinued their diet celery a few years ago?
I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah, and if you eat a pastrami on rye without a celery soda, you're back. So that's 140 calories right there that I don't need.
Got it. You've been spared. Man, all right. Well, that all sounds amazing. So I have some follow-up questions to the last time you were here, David. You said that you were going to work on a book about eating while standing up. Did that happen?
No, we've been on a strange path. The publisher came back to me and said, let's make it more directly a sequel to Food Americana. Let's do Drinks Americana.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
I have a proposal together for it, but how do I phrase this politely? Negotiations with the publisher did not go satisfactorily.
I see.
So we've taken it back out on the market to some other folks, and kind of put it on the back burner while I focus on some other things.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I was just wondering.
I'll get. It's interesting. I'll get to the eating while standing because I really like the topic. I actually attended, and it's getting a little old to put it in this book, but I attended the first Minnesota State Fair when they reopened after the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
This was in 21, and people were just dying to get back to this stuff. And what's fascinating is, as much as you think of fair food as outrageous stuff on a stick, and there's plenty of that, the top seller at the Minnesota State Fair is chocolate chip cookies made by a woman who appears at the fair to sell her cookies, and now she's got them in supermarkets and such. What's her name? Sweet something. Anyway, Her cookies in the 2 weeks of the fair, her revenue is $2 million.
Wow,
And
insane.
One of, if not the most popular combinations at the fair is you go get Sweet Martha. You go get some Sweet Martha's cookies. You can get the little ones in a bucket. And then you go over to the agriculture pavilion and you get some fresh milk. And you put them together. And it's remarkable.
What's not to love?
There's everything to love.
I've seen these before on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to really look into that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, anytime I can get a good chocolate chip cookie, I'm always just.
Yeah.
Well, they're excellent. She let us in to hang around while they were making them. And
cool.
I mean, and now, it's a finely oiled machine. It's not that you see someone sitting there doing one cookie at a time. They're doing them by the sheet pan, but they're very good.
Yeah.
They're very good.
I don't know. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's like a bit of a rivalry between the Minnesota State Fair and the Texas State Fair.
A bit?
A bit.
They both claim to be the largest in the country. I think, well, here's the deal. Down in Texas, yes, their total attendance is more, but not per day.
Mm-hmm.
On a daily basis, the Minnesota State Fair is still the highest, but the Texas State Fair runs longer.
I'm going to say something. I think maybe our one listener that's from Minnesota can get over it. It's because there's nothing else to do. I said what I said. So...
There's a lot to be said for that. It's hard having a sports team, for example, in Los Angeles, because there's so much else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In Minnesota, everyone goes to the Twins because what the hell else do you have?
Indeed. Well, Steve got to go to the Texas State Fair for the first time.
Yes.
What'd you have? What'd you like?
Oh man,
we had a lot. We ate
from 9 a.m. to 7 at night, I think. Now, I've been a regular attender of the State Fair since I was, even before I was old enough to walk. The pho burrito, I think, was probably... That was a highlight.
Pho burrito?
Yep.
Pho burrito. Oh, there you go.
So it was like
burrito.
So it was like this big with noodles and everything, broth for dipping, jalapenos, bean sprouts, Thai basil on right? But it was in like a deep fried wonton wrapper. It was phenomenal.
We went back for seconds, didn't we?
I also went back to the fair again and had another one.
Are you serious?
Yes. I made a return trip.
Well, in Minnesota, the most Minnesota dish you can get at the fair is hot dish on a stick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hot dish is what the Minnesotans call what the rest of the world refers to as a casserole. So it's basically tater tots dipped in mushroom soup, and then the whole thing is battered again, and then it kind of shows up on a stick, and then you go to your cardiologist.
So in the South, we have a variation of that called, depending on where you grew up, Friday night or Saturday night special. It's a Velveeta, cream of mushroom, rotel, ground beef, all mixed together, topped with tater tots.
I went to school in Oklahoma. I'm familiar with it. It's like Frito pie, where you open the small bag of Fritos, you pour the chili and cheese in, you shake it up, and you're in heaven. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful sense about any of those foods where it's legal just to go diving for stuff, basically.
Yeah. There's nothing that a tater tot ever made worse. So
no, and they're magic. I mean, and they were invented out of garbage. The folks in Utah, what's the name of the company? They invented.
It's Ore-Ida holds the.
I think Ore-Ida bought them out, is what it is. But it was a couple of brothers who were making French fries, frozen French fries, and they had all this waste from the potatoes because when you cut them into strips, you get all the junk that isn't a fry. And that's why they invented tater tots, to use the garbage, basically. And it's
a good thing they
did
too.
What's that?
Tater tots it's a good thing they did too, because tater tots are a life.
Oh, they are. In fact, I remember early on, the first or second year of Diners, we went to a place in Kansas City run by a guy named Stretch. That's his whole professional name, where he had tater tot pizza. And that one, I'm telling
you, please.
You can keep your pineapple. I'll have tater tot pizza.
Let me put my glasses on. What?
Yeah. It's fantastic.
I love it.
I love because we don't respect texture enough in our culture. Like Chinese cooking, and first of all, there's not one Chinese cuisine. It's a huge country with different regions, different foods. So China is a melange of cuisines. But in Chinese cooking generally, yes, you want a variety of flavors, but you also want a variety of textures, which is why you eat things in Chinese cuisines that are jelly-like or crunchy, like, well, crunchy is the wrong word, sort of rubbery, like a chicken foot. The balance of various textures over the course of a meal is very important. Well, I'll tell you, my family and I were in Hong Kong not that long ago, and we wanted to go to a locals-only restaurant and finally convinced people at our hotel that we were serious about this. So we ended up going downstairs into this huge, basically dim sum parlor, similar to those I'd been to with my grandfather in Chinatown in New York, but much larger, with communal tables, and nobody there was a visitor like we were, me, my wife, my daughter. So we found a place at a table and we're sitting there, and basically the servers bring around, the bamboo baskets full of different dim sum, and you point and you eat. And we were having a great time for quite a while, and then a server came around and I pointed, and an elderly gentleman, must have been making a General Tso's chicken, an elderly gentleman one table over suddenly piped up, and this is exactly what he said: "That not for you." So now I had to try it, and it was duck foot, and it would not be on my list of the favorite things I ate this week, but damn it, I ate it.
I don't know. I can't do feet.
I can. I like them.
Stephen likes
them.
Well,
define feet. There's a dish they serve in Germany called a Haxen, which is the lower portion.
Talking about like trotters?
It's above the trotter. It's the portion right above the trotter. And you can get it as ice pine where it's boiled. That's big in Berlin. I couldn't do that. But you can get it grilled, and it's called Haxen. And it's phenomenal. It's just, every time I worked in Berlin, we had a crew that insisted we go to a restaurant called Hartke. So Joe, the cameraman, could have his ice pine, and I could have my Haxen.
Oh man. Okay. Amazing. Well, I'll put it on the list for I don't know.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I usually don't shy away from like offal and things like that, but
you're not big on feet, huh?
Like bird feet specifically, it's the gelatinous. I don't go for it. I can't. I've tried.
It was strange
so
for me.
Once
I tried it, I loved it.
What did you have that you liked?
The chicken feet. The first time I ever had chicken feet was at a dim sum parlor in San Antonio, and they brought it out and everyone's enjoying it. And I thought, okay, this is weird, but of course I got to try it. And everyone says it's delicious, and sure enough, it's amazing.
But understand something: a chicken foot is no different than an eggplant, in that it's basically a tasteless delivery system for other flavors you choose tofu. To put on.
Yeah, I was about to say like tofu. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, tofu doesn't taste like. Well, it tastes like it tastes like a door.
It's as good as you make it.
So
exactly. So it's simply what I refer to as a flavor delivery system. That's all.
I love texture, and I'm always seeking out texture. That's just one that I haven't learned to love yet. Now, in my freezer right now, I have probably 12 pounds of frozen chicken feet. It makes really phenomenal bone broth. Yeah. And
because of all the collagen, right?
Well, yeah. And frozen chicken feet make really great dog treats.
Or popsicles. on a hot summer day in the middle of Texas,
more
walking around licking a chicken's foot. What could be better?
The day that one of you catches me doing that, I'll give you an emergency number to call because you'll know I'm be under duress. Somebody's forcing me to do that.
I got $100 on this. Just ask it on your cell phone. Let me know.
You got it. Done.
Oh, gross. David, did you hear the news about Texas recently?
What news about
We're
Texas?
going to be included in the Michelin Guide, finally.
Oh, I saw that. Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, and
Fort Worth.
Fort Lurch. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
That's
speaking.
Okay, so here's the question.
Tell us. Ask us.
The vastly overrated mansion at Turtle Creek, which at least back in my day was famous for their lobster bisque, which was perfectly adequate. You think they get a star?
I think a lot of people are lobbying for them to get a star. There's been a lot of chat like, oh, these are all the places that deserve it. But I don't think so. I think that place is kind of overrated. I don't know.
I'm sorry, with all due, I haven't been there in years, so maybe it's now,
I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, but there are a lot of really amazing places that have come along since that are really pushing boundaries and doing it. Monarch is a wonderful place in Dallas that's doing like really great things. Petra and the Beast that has a small plates model that's doing like incredible stuff. So
okay, but how far? I mean, Michelin just gave a star to a taco stand.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Okay. So are they going to give a star? Are they going to give a star to you know what I'm talking about? The what's his name? Aaron at
Franklin's.
Aaron Franklin at Franklin's Barbecue.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the key apparently is consistency, and apparently he's consistent. So, although he kind of changed the rules by going to prime beef, which completely negates the intent of barbecue.
That's
into something special.
Kind of moves the goalpost just a little bit, but
you think?
I mean, you know, like if that's what he's doing and he's making an amazing product, then it's like, okay, well, more power to you. But
I will be honest, I have never eaten there. I'm not standing in 2-hour lines for anything.
I've done it once.
Was it worth it?
It was really good.
I waited an hour.
Was it better than the place I consider the finest barbecue I've ever had, Louis Miller's in Taylor?
Since I've never eaten there.
Oh, well, then you can't.
Yeah, I can't answer that. Yeah.
Okay.
I really like the fact that
there's been an explosion of barbecue places, and just in North Texas alone, there are a lot.
But they're all doing Central Texas. They're not doing, for example, pork-based Southeastern.
No, they're not doing like Carolina or anything like that.
Well, yeah, but Southeastern Texas, Southeastern Texas, has a tradition of pork barbecue because a bunch of folks left the South. I think it was the 1800s. I got to double check, but they ended up in Southern Texas. So everyone says Texas barbecue, they're thinking of brisket, but down on the Mexican border, cabeza, which is you take a cow's head and you bury it and cook it. I mean, there's all sorts
done that. But I do like that these Michelin stars are pressing the envelope on like what they can do versus like when you think of a Michelin star, it's very fine dining, very upscale, you know, like granted the service is still going to be phenomenal, you know, but like you look at restaurants like El Ideas in Chicago, that's right now it's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to eat there ever since I just happened to Google the restaurant, and then I've seen them on the TV a couple times. and it doesn't look like your typical Michelin star. You know what I'm saying? So I like that it's just going in a different direction, but the food's still out of this world. You know?
Well, the food has to be. I mean, there's a level below which you can't go. On the other hand, Michelin will only apparently review cities where the city or region or some entity is paying to have a guide put out for that region.
Right.
Which, and secondly, look, the worst offender on this is the 50 best restaurants in the world list, which is completely Western, completely tasting menu. And by the way, I'm no fan of tasting menus. I'd rather have a meal. And I've had good, I was taken, my wife and I were taken as guests to Guy Savoy in Vegas, and I'm extremely dubious of Vegas restaurants. But it was one of the finest meals I've ever had in my life. A tasting menu can be wonderful. On the other hand, was it there? Or maybe it was at Alinea. At one of the super premium Michelin starred tasting joints I went to, in the middle of the Alinea, in the middle of the meal, they brought out a plate of Escoffier style beef, as if Picasso, during his Cubist period, brought out one of his early paintings to say, look, I can do that stuff. I'm pushing the envelope with my music. But it was kind of a reaffirmation that, look, I've got the cooking chops. Now get off your high horse and enjoy this frozen green pea puree, which was surprisingly good.
I'm sure it was incredible. I like the appeal of a tasting menu for a group. I think it's really fun, and there's something like magical. But if I'm in a place by myself, I'll get a prefix.
Now look, at Alinea, they also have a sense of fun. I mean, they have this incredible dessert where they come out and they put a plastic tablecloth on your table. Yeah. And then they come out and they pour all kinds of stuff on it and like finger painted, and that's your food. That's candy, it's ice cream, it's whipped, it's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we were lucky we were there talking to Chef Achatz about maybe doing some TV with him, which didn't happen, but we were there as his guests, and he himself did the table dessert for us. So that was kind of nice.
That's amazing. That's
it's interesting. Awesome. That was the quietest kitchen I've ever been in.
Oh yeah.
He gave us a kitchen tour, and it was just hushed and no yelling. And most of the cooking was being done on portable induction cooktops that the chefs took with them from station to station. They only had what appeared to be one gas cooktop in the whole kitchen.
It's less to clean. It's really like you can stack them at the end of the night. It's like very, very clean and crisp.
Well, the kitchen was pristine. It was
of course. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's how I know I will never ever work in a place that nice, because I am loud. I don't yell at people, but I never shut up. So
yeah.
You don't have to be Gordon Ramsay on TV. Apparently, he's much nicer in his real
teddy bear. That's the BBC versus American media coverage. So that's all for cameras. So
we were exposed to a completely different Gordon Ramsay when Kitchen Nightmares came out in America, and it was just night and day. So what you're telling me, David, is if Steve's Sandwich Shop, which is our hypothetical sandwich shop that I might or might not open one day, I can have a Michelin star, is what you're telling me.
If it's a good Sammy.
Oh yeah.
And if it's the same every time I come, and if it pushes the envelope somewhere.
Deal.
And
I don't know if it'll push the envelope, but it'll be a damn good sandwich.
Well, based on what you told me about eating at the fair, I think you got to come up with a super banh mi.
Oh yeah, truth.
Yeah.
I was interviewed the other day about my what are the 10 best sandwiches, and I had a banh mi on that list.
Ooh.
A banh mi is really one of my favorite sandwiches. There used to be this tiny little storefront place when I lived in Austin, down in South Austin, and you could get for $5 at that time. You could get a sandwich was big as your face. They were making the bread But the most interesting part about it, like there are good banh mi's everywhere in Austin, any city that has a large enough Vietnamese population. But this particular sandwich, it used to make me laugh so hard because I would go buy a bag full of them, of course, because they were cheap. But they would wrap it in a piece of computer paper with an asparagus rubber band as the holder. The no frills, like very practical. I was like, yes, this is
like fish and chips in Britain. I mean, wrapped in a newspaper. And it's also a soggy, inedible mess. And I say that having lived in Britain, but that's okay.
Did you do mushy peas or not?
I can.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to them. It's not as bad as Heinz baked beans on toast for breakfast. Although, remember, the Heinz baked beans served in Europe are different than the ones in the United States. They're far less sweet.
They are. You can get them at World Market. I kind of like them in the baked potato. You know, there's a lot of like stalls and food trucks
that's okay.
in the UK where they're doing like, they'll do chili. Their version of chili is like, it's whatever, but they'll do the beans in a potato, lots of butter and salt. But then they do this reprehensible thing where they put tuna in a baked potato. Have you seen that? It's so big.
If I had draw the line.
I mean, come on. I lived in that country. I know they're cooking. You know, you want to call it cooking.
Just a couple of episodes ago, we had a master chef out of Great Britain come on who is a culinary educator in South Carolina. And he was a delightful gentleman, and we were giving him a hard time about conquering all the countries with the best spices and then refusing to use them. So
yes,
he was a really good sport about it.
Well, that's where IPA came from. Is they added an absurd level of hops, still nothing like California IPA, but they upped the hop quotient because hops are a preservative, and the beer had to go to their bureaucrats who were occupying India by boat.
Yeah,
and the only way to keep it from going bad was to hop the hell out of it.
Yeah, till it tastes like you're sucking on a penny.
Well, yeah, but compared to California IPA, it's like lemonade.
Yeah. And then it's like devoid of all joy. So the more bitter, or the more like, there's a line I can't cross with IPAs where it's kind of like you open your mouth in the shower on accident with the shampoo flavor. It's just like, it's too much coriander. I can't do it. I can't do it.
What people don't get is A, you don't have to have an IPA. And B, well, I'm going to go to C also. B, find the beer you enjoy.
Oh, absolutely.
And C, there's many more kinds of beer than you realize. I mean, people who say they don't like, I did a series called Beer Geeks, all about craft beer. And you know, you can tell me you don't like beer because you don't like Budweiser, but have you had a framboise from Belgium that tastes like strawberry?
Yeah,
have you
absolutely.
had sour? I mean, there's all, or have you had, there's a beer called Utopias. Are you familiar with it?
No.
According to Jim Cook, who founded Sam Adams and who produces this, it is the most powerful, the highest proof naturally fermented beverage on earth. It tastes nothing like beer. It tastes like cognac. It's held in casks for up to 20 years, and it's $200 a bottle. And it's damn good.
So when we're talking about natural fermentation, is that kind of like the mead process? Is it closer to that?
Different. Yeah, it's the way in which you put yeast and sugar together, and the yeast eats the sugar and carbon dioxide comes out. Although in the case of this beer, it disappears as the angels share over a long time. This beer is pretty much flat.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I love all kinds of beer. It's just when you get into IPAs, I can't. Kind of the
I can't.
Triple and the 60 and the 90 minute and the.
Well, no, hold on. There's one IPA that'll blow your mind, and it is surprisingly not as bitter as you'd think. It's Dogfish Head 120-minute IP.
I actually have 2 of those in my fridge right now.
They're great. They're phenomenal.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I live in a small townish kind of area. There's one guy at one liquor store who, when it comes in, he puts it aside for me.
I was wondering if that's
great to have those
because every time I think
small-town
IPAs, that's what I think of is the Dogfish Head brand, because those are they're stellar for being an IPA.
They are, although interestingly enough, the 120, and I assume it's got something to do with dry hopping time, I don't know, but the 120 is soft in a way that the 90 and the 60 are not.
Yeah,
they don't fight you.
So I can remember when I was first getting into beers and stuff, graduated from Coors Light, and I was with a friend of mine one time, and we went to a gas station. I remember opening my car door, and there was a $20 bill on the ground. I said, "Excellent, we got beer money." So we go inside, and my friend says, "Hey, we should get this Dogfish Head," and I think it was like a 4-pack or something like that. It came out to like
20 wasn't
$20. Well, no, it was a 90-minute that we found. Sorry, but I do have a couple. Anyways. So he said, "Yeah, let's try them." So I tried even the 90-minute. It's amazing, and I didn't realize that the ABV is as high as it is. Compared.
Yeah, well, that's a tough thing to find. I mean, I found out that Belgian triple means triple the alcohol the morning after. So,
well, yeah, I can remember drinking one of those, thinking, "Why am I already getting a buzz? Am I that light of a weight?"
We were shooting the pilot for Beer Geeks at the Cambridge Brewery in Massachusetts. Excellent brewery. And I had another producer working with me, and she was half my weight. And after the shoot that night, we sat around the bar drinking, because that's what you do when you're with a brewmaster. Right. Only we were drinking triples. And I literally was twice her weight. And I was in pain the next morning, but on the way to the shoot, she was vomiting out the car window. So,
Yikes.
Yeah, that was a little rough.
Oh, man.
I'm sure it's one of those that just sneak up on you, and you ask yourself, how did I get this deal?
Look, if you're at least let's say you're drinking whiskey straight, it, because it tastes like whiskey.
Yeah.
You drink a Belgian triple straight, you think to yourself, this is pretty good Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get in real trouble if you, are doing a beers and shots type situation. Then you can get in real trouble.
I've heard tell that can be problematic.
Just a little bit, just a wee bit. So.
Well, I used to work in Northern Ireland a lot. And, how do you not have an Irish whiskey shot to go with your Guinness? Although there you had to be really awake, because this was during the time of what they called the Troubles. Mm-hmm. There were certain Irish whiskeys that were Catholic and certain Irish whiskeys that were Protestant. And you had to be real careful what pub you were in to not order the wrong one.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about Michelin stars, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the James Beard Awards and why they're important, and then we'll get into your new project.
The James Beard Awards are the Oscars of the food world, which means they're as fair or unfair. There's always going to be someone who's snubbed, someone who should have made it, someone who got it who shouldn't have, but it's a big deal. And the 2024 awards recently came out, and it's a big deal. I mean, they had their difficulties a couple of years ago when there were some questions raised about the in-kitchen behavior at various restaurants by various chefs. Let's face it, back of the house has been for a long time, and it's changing, I think. But there's a long history of misogyny and abuse in restaurant kitchens. And it caught up with the Beard Awards, who have now included elements such as diversity and behavior in the criteria for choosing America's best chef nationally for that year and America's best regional chefs.
Right.
There's the Southwest, which somehow also includes Denver. when I was living in Arizona,
I'll give them the west part.
Yeah, we thought it was the mountain region, but apparently there's no mountain region. I'm going to be talking with a number of Michelin and James Beard Award winners, as well as other really important people in the world of food on my new podcast, Culinary Characters Unlocked, which debuts August 27th, and will be dropping twice a week on all of the major platforms. I mean, you can find it on its own site when we go up if you'd like. But, one of the things I love about having become a food journalist is chefs and restaurant owners.
Yeah.
And I have learned so much from them and continue to learn so much from them every time we chat. First of all, chefs are passionate people. I mean, I'm telling that to a couple of chefs, but storytelling is about interesting people who have something worth listening to say. I'm actually editing the interview I did with Nancy Silverton at the moment. For anyone who's been living in a culinary cave for the last however many years, she is one of the most important chefs in America in the last 50 years. She's won the James Beard Award as Best Pastry Chef, the James Beard Award as Best Chef, and her restaurant at the time, Campanile, won Best Restaurant. And she knows everything there is to know about food. And anything she doesn't know, I'm sure the two of you could fill me in on. But listening to her story of how she ended up cooking, she took a fancy to a guy in college. She liked him, wanted to date him, found out he was working in the dormitory kitchen. So she asked for a job there. She got a job working for him. They dated briefly, and then she went on to this incredible career when she figured out, hey, I really like doing this. And her career has been extraordinary. I talked to Dan Barber, who's won Michelin stars at both of his restaurants, who is probably the most cutting edge chef in terms of trying to redefine how we eat and what we eat. He is still producing food from his grandmother's family farm that he grew up eating. And his whole idea on food is, it ought to be local, but it ought to be local because local food tastes better. He's far less motivated by things that people claim to care about but don't, such as how much methane cows emit into the atmosphere. And he is more concerned with A, ethical treatment of the animals, B, the ethical raising of plants and produce, and C, maximizing the taste you can get out of food. His view is that using heritage seed, not being in hock to Monsanto or the other three major seed producers.
Right.
Yes, it's good for the environment because if you actually raise products in proximity to each other, they will provide the nutrient rotation that we now get from chemicals. But he's convinced the food raised that way tastes better, and I got to agree with him. So there's so many people out there doing incredible things, and it's a real pleasure to chat. I talked to Drew Newport, who has opened 35 or 40 restaurants in his lifetime, and is best known for Nobu and Tribeca Grill, which he owns with, among some other high-profile investors, Robert De Niro. He told me about how he ended up in business with De Niro. De Niro had been coming to Nobu and kind of got a fixation on Drew as a restaurateur, and basically explained one day, look, I'm opening this Tribeca Film Center for creatives to work out of. It needs a restaurant. I have a space. Let's go take a look.
That's incredible.
And that's the Tribeca Grill today. So everybody's got their fascinating backstory for how they ended up doing this sort of thing. Jerry Tam runs the oldest family-owned, continuously operating Chinese restaurant in America. He just won a James Beard Award in the category of American Classic, which notes extraordinary restaurants that have meant something to a local community for a long time.
Right.
And he still serves chop suey, which was the gateway drug to Chinese American food back in the 1840s and 50s. And the entire American Chinese food craze took off, fueled by chop suey, which may or may not have been a bastardization. No, that's an unfair word. An evolution of a dish served in the Canton province. Chop suey arguably translating to odds and ends or bits and pieces. Right. Or something invented from scratch by the cooks who had come here to feed the Chinese gold miners who came to the California gold rush, and then expanded to feed non-Chinese Americans who weren't going to eat the offal that was in true Chinese cooking. So it evolved into this. And the signs on those restaurants back in the 1800s, forget the name of the restaurant, it would say chop suey. And the Peking Noodle Parlor, Pekin, no G on it, in Butte, Montana, still has the chop suey sign out front.
That's incredible. Well, that's like what you talked about at the top of the episode, is like making the foods more fashionable because you know what's going to attract. And that's the way that a lot of dishes have evolved.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that.
There isn't.
I'm in a Chinese restaurant and some foodie says to me, it's not authentic. Yes, it is. It's authentic Chinese American, which is a completely different cuisine than Chinese.
I can see that, yeah.
By the way, there is no Chinese cuisine. There's Canton.
Cantonese.
There's Beijing. There's northern China, where there's a heavy emphasis on spicy sausage. Yeah. It's all different. So there's Chinese American, and that's a valid cuisine. There's Mexican American, which is evolving heavily because it began when the United States defeated Mexico in the Mexican-American War and seized half of the territory that had been Mexico. So all of a sudden, the Norteños, the Mexicans of northern Mexico, were on this side of the border. And yes, they cooked for themselves, but there were some issues getting ingredients that were easy to get in Mexico. And there were some issues making this food palatable to non-Mexicans, which is how we ended up with Tex-Mex, California Mex, all of which was based on the food of the Norteños. Now, food from other Mexican regions is finally, I say finally, it's been happening for decades, but, mole is not a food of the Norteños. It's a food of Puebla in central Mexico. It's become quite popular. And the rock star Mexican dish these days is birria, which is a kind of spicy stew that started out being made of goat in central Mexico.
Now it's
migrated to Tijuana, where it became a beef dish and it became a taco, but it migrated there years, decades, a century, not a century, but 70 years after the then cuisine of the Norteños became part of American cuisine. So birria is now something new from someplace else. And it's become, I drove 90 minutes to Philly to go to a birria truck on the south side of Philly that people line up for forever. This stuff is good. And now I can get it closer to my home on the Jersey Shore. It's the next step in Mexican American cuisine.
Yeah. There isn't anything wrong with making something more accessible or approachable or fashionable or anything. Stephen, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, birria, especially out here in Texas, to me, it's almost like a trend right now. And
it is.
As great as it is, I'm just curious as to what the next big food trend is going to be, and it's something that can be, simple or because I can't say birria is very like hard to make, but it takes skill and takes some love to put into that dish.
And it takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a braise. I mean,
exactly. Is there any kind of food trends that you think would possibly come up over the next, I don't know, 5-7 years? What do you think?
Well, there's one that probably won't, that's been trying to push its way to the forefront. Everybody and his brother with an interest in Peruvian cooking has been pushing it for 10 years now, and it can't break through. And it's an extraordinary cuisine. Yes, people are afraid of anticulchos because that's grilled beef heart, but get over it. It's heart is a muscle.
It's good.
It is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And Peruvian ceviche, unlike Mexican ceviche, is to some extent anyway tomato based, with less of a lime cook on the seafood, so it's a little more raw. I love Peruvian food. I'd like to see it get the respect it deserves. But you know what? I don't see, and I hate this word, but I'll use it because people. I don't see a growing ethnic food trend of any particular kind at the moment. I have a feeling that it'll be TikTok based. That
it all is.
It usually is, yeah.
But I mean, look, bubble tea, for example, came out of nowhere because America clearly wanted tapioca in their tea. I don't know. You can go broke predicting this. I'm stunned that Vietnamese food is not. When I wrote my book, I had a cutoff for the book. The premise of the book was, here's how we created an American cuisine from the foods of other countries and cultures. I didn't include Thai, but I included sushi because my cutoff point was, what's on everyone's possibles list when it's lunchtime at work? And in every city in America, sushi at the grocery store or the drugstore is on everyone's list. Thai, as much as I love it, is not. Vietnamese is not. To me, the cutoff was, not only can you get this anywhere, but is it in the forefront of what you think about having wherever you are?
Yeah.
So sushi is about as American a food as you can get these days.
Yeah. Well, we actually just did an episode about sushi and talking about how it became, how and when it became popular in the United States, and how it kind of had a boom before the anti-Japanese sentiment happened. And it's crazy because it's been around since dynasty after dynasty.
Yeah, but it was originally a way to preserve fish and had nothing to do with rice. And
absolutely.
Rice out. Now it doesn't have to have fish. I mean, to be sushi, you need vinegared rice and pretty much anything else. There is a woman you should talk to named Marissa Baggett, who she is an African American Jewish woman who went to the Sushi Academy of California Sushi, I guess it's called, has been living in Memphis, has just moved to Nashville. She's got a couple of sushi cookbooks out. She's in the first book. She's in Food Americana.
I was going to say, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I did an evening at her house watching her teach a sushi class. She so embraces the initial impetus behind sushi in Japan, not in the 14th or 15th centuries when you were throwing the rice out, but the concept of using what you have as fresh as possible. Being in the South, she makes sushi with okra, pickled okra. It's fantastic. She's remarkable. She's remarkable. She's all over social media. You can find her.
So how many books have you put out?
The only one I've put out so far is Food Americana. Either Drinks Americana or Eating While Standing will be next, but that's going to be at least a year.
So in any of your books, or in your book or future books, are there any kind of recipes that you've done?
I got a recipe at the end of every chapter of Food Americana. I got a recipe for one of the key items. And in fact, I was shocked by the number of chefs who were willing to share. Big Bob Gibson's Barbecue in Alabama is famous for their white sauce for barbecued chicken.
Mm-hmm.
The owner, who I'm embarrassed to say his name's going to escape me right now, he's a great guy. I said, I don't suppose you want to share this, but how about the white sauce recipe? He said, absolutely. For those who care, it's vinegar, salt, pepper, lemon, and mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah. Melissa and I, we always talk like the best chefs are the ones that share the knowledge. They want everyone to know their secrets, because they're in the food world. If people like your stuff, there really shouldn't be any secrets. Like, let's just have a good time together.
Well, I got news for you. You can give me every ingredient and every instruction, and you'll still do better with it than I will.
Well, I was going to say, even if we have the exact same recipe, it's going to be two different end results. And that's something that, I've noticed, and I've always been interested and intrigued with, because it's like, hey, we have the exact same thing, and your sauce tastes different from mine, but I like that,
Oh,
so whenever you do your, what's that?
I didn't eat it tonight because I grazed today and I'm watching my weight, but I made a red sauce today with hot and sweet Italian sausage.
Yes.
That would knock you on your butt. I am the best Jewish red sauce maker in America. Which is it's like being the best Jewish left fielder for the AAA.
Right. Well, whenever you do your next book, I'm just going to throw it out there because I might have something that could give you some
Get your grub on. I'm in.
Just saying.
All recipes?
Oh, these are all my recipes that I've, put my twist on over the years, things like that.
Tell me one. Come on.
Oh, Chef. My favorite one is my Caesar dressing. As simple as it is to make, as common as it is, you can ask Melissa. I've never had a Caesar as good as mine. That's the one thing that I will say I own.
With or without the egg?
Oh, with egg yolk. Oh, yeah.
Yolk?
Yeah, I do the yolks.
I thought it was the whites.
I've never when I was taught it was always.
I believe you. You know what?
Yeah.
I've never made a Caesar dressing in a cookbook, so you win.
So if you make Caesar dressing and you include a whole egg, it will be a broken emulsion because of the protein in the whites.
Gotcha.
So it'll have all these kind of floaters in it, which it doesn't appeal to me. Some people like it that way, so I don't know.
And if you're doing a drink, what would you call it? Drink Americana?
Drinks Americana.
Drinks Americana. Yeah. I have a lovely Long Island tea recipe that would probably knock your socks off. That would not even taste like alcohol. So I would.
Well, that's the whole point of Long Island iced tea. It's a bunch of 16-year-olds with fake IDs for the wrong gender.
Right.
I mean, my fake ID I lived up in Massachusetts. At the time, the drinking age was 18. The drinking age in Vermont was 16. So, of course, we drove up the interstate and got hammered and drove home because that's what you do when you're an idiot. But no, Long Island iced tea was the drink of choice.
That's the one.
And there you go.
Yeah, that's the one that I learned at a very young age. I'm talking like 13, 14.
Well, it's not every alcohol, right?
Well,
yeah, it's a little bit of everything.
It's got a handful of them, And I think here in Texas, by law, you can only use 3 alcohols, and of course, mine's like 5 or 6 or something like that. So
yeah, but see, when I went to college in Oklahoma, and by the way, what we used to say about the Oklahoma-Texas game, which is played in Texas,
Dallas,
to which the fans of both teams rushed to attend.
Yes.
What we used to say of that game in Oklahoma was, on that weekend, the IQ of both states went up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
they play it at the fair. So
it's
always
up in Oklahoma. We didn't bother with mixed drinks. We drank pure grain alcohol in lemonade. The only drink that keeps itself cold.
Absolutely. David, what's on your coffee cup?
It says woof.
Oh.
There we go.
Okay, here we
Oh,
go.
the other way. Yeah, there we go.
I was like,
woof.
It was like halfway out of frame a couple times. Like it's either a goose or a dog.
It's woof.
Yeah,
I love it.
Fred the Beagle is here somewhere, but
I was gonna say he hasn't barked this time.
Well, he noticed I was occupied and he figured he wasn't going to get any food out of the deal. So he went back in the other room hoping for some spaghetti.
You sent him a memo this time.
He doesn't respond to my memos. he sends them to trash because he doesn't have an opposable thumb.
Indeed. It's all slight. One paw.
It's a problem.
Right.
It's all.
So the podcast drops on the
27th of August will be the first installment. We're going twice a week thereafter. We will be on every platform you can find.
Are we going to be invited for an episode?
Absolutely. As soon as we're done with this, I'm inviting both. So
sweet.
Excellent.
we'll turn right around.
By the time this episode drops, you'll just be a couple weeks out from the premiere of Culinary Characters Unlocked. And I think everybody should go listen. I can't wait. I'm going to add it into my regular rotation of podcasts.
Thank you.
Super excited about that. David, I'm about to relocate to Raleigh, North Carolina for my job. I got to know, is it just something that I have to eat in North Carolina?
Well, barbecue.
Well, of course. I prefer Carolina barbecue.
Yeah, but it's got to be whole hog. It can't
Absolutely.
be. No, the thing with whole hog is if you get it chopped, then the skin gets chopped in with the other stuff. I mean, I talk about it in the book, hanging out with the guys from the shed at Memphis in May.
Whole hog barbecue, mustard-based sauce, and blue cheese coleslaw. My God.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, look, you're getting closer to places like Memphis where they break all the rules.
Indeed.
You know, ribs at the Rendezvous. You know, I love barbecue because everyone's got rules and no one follows them. Barbecue is supposed to be low and slow over indirect heat. The most famous ribs in Memphis are cooked direct, high heat in what used to be a coal chute. And the spicing is Greek because the Vertigos family Charlie, I think it's Charlie, that may be his son. Anyway, the family that started the place was Greek. And they were using Greek spices. So, I mean, and also it's the same time you can get barbecue spaghetti in. I mean, it's insane. But there's, you know what? I just talked to someone in Raleigh. I'm trying to think what the restaurant was. No. I know where it is. There's an Indian restaurant in Durham.
Okay.
What the hell's the name of it? I may have to follow up with an email, but it is Indian street food cooked by a woman who either came here at a very young age or was born here to first-gen parents. And I'll get you the info because you got it.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
I might need a couple of suggestions when I go visit Philadelphia in October now. And you mentioned that birria truck.
We're going to the Tacos Pueblitas truck in South Philly. You're also going to John's Roast Pork because the real Philadelphia sandwich is not the cheesesteak.
Right.
It is the roast pork sandwich. Which is, I make it at home pretty damn well for an amateur.
I was going to say, is that the one in Reading Terminal?
They probably have one in Reading Terminal, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'd go to the original if I were you, but it's roast pork. And John's actually, did John start it? The guy who started it, it's pork, spinach, and that was it, just pork and spinach. The iteration that is the standard today is pork, broccoli rabe sauteed with garlic, and sharp prove on really good Italian bread that you can get in Philly. Those are the two Philadelphia items that I would definitely put on the list. You want more? I'm only 90 minutes from Philly. I can give you more recommendations.
Oh, of course. I mean, you know what we should do is you should just go.
I'll meet you there.
There you go. It'll be
Philly in a second, dude. Yes. Absolutely.
That'd be amazing.
So me and my wife are going to go, and then my dad's going to be going with us, and he's a first timer. He's never been there, so that would be an experience to say the least.
I was, in fact, got a really my best friend in the world now lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So he was visiting a few weeks ago, and I'm 90 minutes from Philly, and we looked up and said, "Roast pork in Philly?" He said, "Yep." In the car, off we went. And every time I'm there, I end up eating in a culinarily Italian area. So I always just find me a butcher shop and walk in. I came back the other day with a rack of lamb, and he pulled the carcass out of the walk-in to cut it for me, and some incredible homemade sausage. It's you know what? America, go to a butcher.
Yes.
You need a bail bondsman. You may need a lawyer. You definitely need a butcher.
David,
Because
when's the last time you were in Dallas?
Last time I was, it might have been 25 or 30 years.
If you find yourself here again, you've got to go to Jimmy's Market. Best.
Well, you'll be in Raleigh. Okay, Jimmy's Market. What do they serve?
It's an Italian meat market.
Oh, the best.
You get a little fresh sandwich too.
When we lived in North Jersey, we were in Sopranos territory. I mean, literally, on the border with Bloomfield. And I had an Italian butcher there, straight out of the Sopranos. And the guy, I don't think he had any aim, because every time you went in, he was all cut up. There was blood everywhere. So, I'm hoping,
that's like how you know it was good.
Yeah, it was good. And man, and he too, you want a rack of lamb, out comes the lamb carcass. That's the thing I like about a butcher, is being able to go and say, I'm thinking I want to do this. What do you recommend? My wife likes steak tartare, not my favorite, but my wife likes steak tartare. So I went into the butcher shop and I said, what do you recommend? He said, you won't believe it, but hanger.
Oh yeah.
Said, really?
This podcast is a big fan of hanger steak.
Well, it apparently makes a fantastic steak tartare, according to my wife. So that's what I want from a butcher. I'm thinking about doing this. What cut do I want, and what do I want to do to it?
That's another cut that requires a little bit of trimming. It's got quite a bit of like membrane and some silver skin. But David, I'm going to tell you, like, if you're cooking hanger steak as a steak, one of my favorite ways to do it is to take a really thin slice of brie and black pepper it, a couple of raspberries soaked in balsamic vinegar, and put your sliced steak on top of that while it's hot, and then melt some butter right on top. That's how I like hanger steak. It's so good.
Oh my God, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Really good.
I'm in. Well, hanger, it's interesting. It's having a moment. And it too is another cheap cut that ain't cheap anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting up there in price, yeah.
But one of the reasons why I like a butcher is because there are all those like forgotten cuts that you're not going to find in supermarkets because they're not popular anymore. 7 blade roast, 7 bone roast. That's my favorite for pot roast. They don't sell that anymore. You can't find it.
They don't. There's also, it's interesting because we cut meat one way in the United States. They cut meat a different way in other countries.
Absolutely.
So my Michigan friend was talking about an Argentinian cut that I'd never, Calipera, something like that.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's like tri-tip, sort of.
Picanha, right?
Picanha.
I've never had it, but
it's so
he says it's fantastic.
It is.
They were down in BA not that long ago. So
it's like if you had a London broil in the UK. It's a completely different, not like a terrible pun. It's a completely different animal, right? It's a whole different ball game like than you're getting here. So,
well, hey, on the East Coast, you can't get a tri-tip.
Nope. But you can get them in Santa Maria all day long.
Oh, yeah.
That
cut is not sold here.
Texas right next to everything else, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't exist here.
And you just gave me a good idea. I actually have a friend out here in West Texas who has a butcher shop. And a lot of it's like the ribeyes, the sirloins, all that stuff. I need to go over visit him and say, what do you got that isn't very popular? I want something different. What do you recommend?
But you got to serve it with a nice chimichurri, don't you?
Oh yeah, picanha, yes. But I just want to go see what they have, just to throw them off their game a little bit. You know,
well, what's that thing they call the butcher's cut? That's like a little diamond.
Well, actually, the hanger steak used to be called the butcher's cut because they would keep it behind the counter for themselves.
Didn't Skirt do that for a while too?
Maybe. I'm trying to think of. It might have been like the shoulder tender, that little area that's just right in between. Super like a mock tenderloin. So
right.
I love that stuff.
That's a tenderloin's so weird. You know, a tenderloin cut as a steak is so boring. And tenderloin cooked as a tenderloin is so good. It's amazing to me what the difference in internal volume does.
If I'm out at a restaurant, I won't order a fillet. I'll order a ribeye.
Right. Well, see, I'm even weirder. Everyone says ribeye is great because of the fat. I like a New York strip.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice combination of flavor. You know, it's fun.
Yeah. They're great. I actually prefer like sirloins over all that stuff because it's a good, flavorful cut that doesn't cost as much, you know? Mm-hmm. And you get a great result every time.
The one I can't stand is Wagyu, whether it's American fake Wagyu or Japanese. To my taste, and the Japanese don't eat it as steak. They eat it as little thin pieces, like you get for shabu shabu. But there's just too damn much fat in it for me. And I know your fat is flavor. You're supposed to want it. But still, you know, and then I see people claiming that they're selling Wagyu hamburgers. Find the Wagyu under the pickles, okay? Tell me that you can taste that difference in meat.
Yeah. Not after you put the condiments on it. You can't tell what you're eating.
Well, but that's like frozen beef. For the book, I talked to a bunch of meat scientists about, you know, the better burger joints saying how great it is that their beef has never been frozen.
Sure.
I talked to a bunch of meat scientists who said, well, technically speaking, if you put a frozen burger after it was cooked next to a fresh burger after it was cooked with no condiments, nothing, and ate it immediately, you would detect probably a slight difference between the two.
Yeah.
But once it's on a bun with ketchup, mustard, tomato, pickles, onions, and your left sock, no one's.
Yeah, agreed.
What's his name? Five Guys. Jerry, the founder of Five Guys. I said to him, you know, the scientists tell me it doesn't make a difference, really. He said, well, it does to me. And it's a great marketing.
I mean, it's a really great marketing point, but there's a lot of stigmas that need to be removed from food to make them accessible to everybody, because freezing is just a form of food preservation, and there's like nothing wrong with it.
And I got news for you, folks. If you eat a piece of salmon that hasn't been frozen, enjoy the parasites.
Yeah, it's part of parasite destruction protocol is pre-freezing your salmon.
Enjoy the parasites.
So, well, David, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope we didn't
take you for having me.
So yeah, absolutely. Come back anytime. Everybody be sure to check out the podcast. I'll link it in the show notes. I'll also link to David already has a bio page on the foodforthoughtcast.com with an entire bio that tells of all his exploits, Good Morning America segments, all of the culinary adventures you've had. It's what you sent us the first time around in the press package. So it's all still there. It lives there. You got a little spot on our website forever. So yeah, I'll send you a screenshot when we get done. You can see it.
And I shamelessly promoted myself. God forbid.
You're totally fine.
Well, so, you guys are Culinary Characters Unlocked, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll arrange a date as soon as we're done with this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. But Steve, we gotta go. Let's get out of here.
All right.
Goodbye.
Chef and Chef, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You too.
It was a pleasure. Our pleasure.